katoa, no mai hoki mai ki te Haohao Te Tangata. Welcome back to our video series for Whangaroa Papa Hapū, where we're talking all things redress. I'm really excited to have join us today Tipene Kapa-Kingi, who is the Pou Whakarae of Te Rūnanga nui o Te Aupōuri. So tēnā koe e hoa.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora te whanunga. Kia ora mai rā e tātou mā. Ko Tipene Kapa-Kingi ahau. Te taha o taku krani pāpa, no te whānau kapa, no te kao, no te Aupōuri. Te taha o taku krani māma, no te whānau heke, no te pupuke, no te Tahaawai, no Whangaroa. Koia tēnei, kua tau ki roto ki tēnei wānanga, ki roto ki tēnei kōrero. Kia ora, I'm Tipene, currently the CEO, Pou Whakarae for Te Rūnanga nui o Te Aupōuri. On my grandfather's side, I'm from Te Aupōuri, from the kapa whānau, and on my grandmother's side, I'm from Te Tahaawai, pupuke, from the hekes, the hapes, and the Rudolphs in Te Tahaawai.
Kia ora. Ka pai, so I'm really excited to talk to you today because we're obviously in Whangaroa on this journey of redress, or looking at a pathway towards redress. We are not on that journey yet, but we're looking to hopefully get there. And obviously, Te Aupōuri, you've got a really interesting perspective because not only are you from Whangaroa, but you're also from Te Aupōuri, and Te Aupōuri is an iwi that has been through that whole process. What was it like for Te Aupōuri before the redress journey began for your iwi?
Yeah, the tikana, so I've been privileged enough to be a part of the post-settlement journey for Te Aupōuri, and yeah, I do have a perspective of both sides. One side, on my Te Aupōuri side, being that of in a post-settlement era, and then my other side, my Whangaroa side, being in a pre-settlement era, seeing the pros and cons of both. And I do want to say that there are still pros and cons on the post-settlement side. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and off the bat actually I want to say that settlement isn't the silver bullet to solve all our problems and lift our rangatiratanga o our mana motuhake, but it does come with its benefits as well, and its learnings and its challenges. But Te Aupōuri, pre-settlement, like most iwi, we were suffering massively from intergenerational land loss. A lot of those. Sorry, let me just start that again.
Right. Yeah.
So Te Aupōuri, pre-settlement, we were suffering victims of intergenerational land loss. A lot of our whenua was lost in early settlement transactions. Oh, sorry, let me start that again. So a lot of our whenua was lost from post-treaty. A lot of our whenua was lost in illegitimate transactions with early Pākehā settlers. A lot of those transactions happened post the signing of Te Tiriti. So in Te Aupōuri, we have one rangatira that signed he hakaputanga. His name was Te Mahia. And then we have two rangatira that signed Te Tiriti. Their names were Pou Whakarae, firstly, and secondly, Te Wiki Taitimu. So those are all of the representatives from Te Aupōuri in those two documents, those two covenants between Māori and Pākehā. Now, the belief of Pou Whakarae and Te Wiki Taitimu was that signing Te Tiriti would be a way to secure and sustain Te Aupōuri ownership of Te Aupōuri lands. Shortly after signing Te Tiriti, they would come to find out that that wasn't the case. One of the major transactions that really deemed Te Aupōuri landless and had really reduced significantly the percentage of ownership in Te Aupōuri was the Muri Whenua South transaction, which happened in 1863. And that transaction transferred 100,000 acres of Aupōuri land to a small handful of Pākehā settlers. They paid £1,000 for that land, so less than 10 cents an acre. And one of the other things that was really fraught about that transaction was that not all of the owners of that whenua actually agreed. As we all know, a lot of the early Pākehā settlers were quite devious in negotiating and cutting deals with Māori to get their land for cheap, and that's exactly what happened for us in Te Aupōuri. One of the owners of the whenua that did not agree to the transaction going forward, his name was Pou Whakarae, one of the signatories of Te Tiriti on behalf of Te Aupōuri. And at the time the transaction went ahead, one of his kōrero, he expressed a kōrero which we still hold on to today as Te Aupōuri, and that kōrero goes like this: Puritia te whenua, e kore puritia he whetū kamo kamo. So he was saying, hold fast to the land, for one can't hold on to shining stars. And that whakatauaki talks about the importance of holding on to our land, sustaining our ownership and occupation on our land, because at the end of the day, money and all of these other offerings from the settlers, from the Pākehā, will never be able to replace that. So that's a kaupapa that we try to hold onto in our sphere, in our world of Te Aupōuri. But from those years, from the 1860s up until 2012, 2013, when the settlement was completed, there was a huge portion of Te Aupōuri land which remained in either Crown or Pākehā ownership. In the settlement, we got less than 5% back, but over that 160 plus years, we've been afforded whenua that we couldn't access, couldn't utilise and couldn't develop. So a big fight for Te Aupōuri, and e mihi ana ki aku kuia kaumātua o Te Aupōuri, nā rātou te tohe, nā rātou te whawhai I kōkiri. I've only come into the settlement journey quite late in the piece for Te Aupōuri. The settlement was completed in 2012, 2013, but the actual negotiations going right back started before I was born in the 1990s, and that 20-year journey, 20-plus year journey was progressed by my elders in Te Aupōuri. A lot of them kua mate I tēnei wā, kua riro, but they put in the hard yards then, so then my generation could come in and reap some of the benefits of the settlement and what we got out of the settlement, and that's what I'm doing now. And I remind myself constantly that I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for them fighting for that 20 plus years. Now we're 10 years post-settlement, still lots of mahi to do, still lots of legacy issues that we're trying to figure out and fix to do with the settlement.
So what was it like as an uri of Te Aupōuri to be in the thick of that redress process?
Yeah, so a lot of the mahi was done by the kuia kaumātua of Te Aupōuri. He tamariki rawa noa hau I tērā wā. So I was just a kid, and the process had started before I was even born. But from the kōrero that's been given to me and the history that I've read, it wasn't an easy process. The settlement actually started way back in the time of Maturata, Nāna te kaupapa i hakaara ake. And that was through the actually te Rūnanga nui o te hiku o te ika. So that at the very beginning of the settlement, it was set up to be a collective te hiku settlement between ngā iwi e rima o te hiku, being Ngāti Kuri, Te Aupōuri, Ngai Takoto, Te Rarawa, and Ngāti Kahu. Over the years of negotiations, there wasn't only disagreements between ngā iwi and the Crown, but there was disagreements between the iwi themselves. So one by one, each respective iwi decided to split away from the collective and progress their settlements individually or in their own iwi capacity. In the end, 4 of the 5 iwi settled, Te Rarawa, Te Aupōuri, Ngāti Kuri and Ngai Takoto. Our whanaunga Ngāti Kahu completed a partial deed of settlement, and they still continue to progress their direct negotiations with the Crown in regard to their settlement. So it was a hard time when I talked to a lot of my kuia kaumātua that are still around, the likes of Waitai Petera, ka puta te tangi, ka heke ngā roimata. So it was a hard time, and it's hard for our kuia kaumātua to think back to those times, because not only was there feuds between the Crown and themselves, but there were feuds between ngā iwi o te hika, ngā iwi o te hiku o te ika, whanaunga ki te whanaunga, iwi ki te iwi. So that made things even harder, and it scarred a lot of our kuia kaumātua, that redress negotiation process.